Ladies and gentlemen, after weeks of Nikki not wanting Shawn anywhere near her, God forbid touching her, and Shawn walking out of that bedroom with his robe wide open, looking like his whole outlook on marriage just shifted, something happened in that bedroom, y'all. And she ain't mad about it, but we're going to get into it. Welcome in to That's So Trending. My name is Belle. We're going to talk all things reality TV, pop culture, and trending topics here. Today, we're hopping into Married at First Sight, Season 20, Episode 15. We got to talk about Shawn hurting Adam's feelings and him taking that out on everyone at the table. Mecca telling his wife that she's unattracted to him. And then somehow Caitlyn turning Devon's comment about physical intimacy into cheating. And let's start with the reason that some of you guys clicked this video, which is Nikki did what with Shawn? Well, it all starts with Shawn planning a date for Nikki, and Nikki says this is one of the best dates that they planned together, and she was really into it with Shawn. And then he has her eat a piece of chocolate out of his mouth, and it was like, sir, relax, you were doing so well. Because why couldn't we just eat the chocolate with our hands? Then that prompts them to go home and explore physical intimacy together. Nikki makes it clear that they did not go all the way. They just explored, got a little bit more connected, whatever that means to them. And based on Shawn walking out of that bedroom that night, things went pretty well. That man looked rejuvenated, didn't he? A little pep in his step. And later at the couples dinner, Shawn would say that this is the best they've ever been. And I said, I know you think so. Now, underneath of the jokes though, Nikki has been telling us that attraction can grow for her when there's an emotional connection. And now we don't have to just take her word for it. We can actually see that happening for her and Shawn. Now, does that mean that they've become wildly passionate as a couple? Of course not. That's going to take some time. However, it is going to become important later at the couples dinner when Adam says that he's not buying it. But before Adam starts investigating what's happening in their marriage, let's hop into his, shall we? At this couples dinner, Nikki asks a very important question. Why is it so important to you that you and your wife have the exact same hobbies? And he says that it's just important to him from previous relationships that they can do sports together, basically. And that it's important that his wife and him vibe to the max. And I want y'all to keep that in your head for later. It's going to come up again. Caitlyn says that she doesn't know a single romantic couple that does everything together. And Adam says, well, you should have met my ex. Sir, what? And who is this ex that he refuses to stop talking about? This man talks more about his ex than he does Marissa. And I think this gets back to the whole reason why Adam rubs some of us the wrong way, because it's not unreasonable to want a partner that plays sports with you and that will go jet skiing with you and that has similar interests as far as gym goals. It is abnormal though to be sitting in front of your wife and seeing if she fits into your lifestyle while she's actively building a life with you and figuring out how she can fit inside of your life and your world with you. Because I do believe there's two very different approaches to marriage. One of which is what can we build together? The other is how much of my lifestyle am I willing to shift around to accommodate you? And for Adam, that's practically zero. Then Shawn hops into the conversation, and this is where things start to go left. Adam has a visceral response to everything that's about to happen in this conversation. Shawn asks Adam, do your parents communicate the same way you do? And Adam says, no, this is how I talk to friends though. And Shawn says, well, when you're using words like vibes and cooks and ripping it doesn't seem like you have the words to express yourself, like you don't have the vocabulary necessary. And it shows that you have low EQ in some ways. Adam instantly felt insulted by that because he equates EQ with IQ, and Shawn tried to clarify and said, no, EQ, not intelligence. And something that other people might not agree with is that Shawn is right here. I hate emotional shortcuts. Don't tell me the vibe was off. Tell me, did you feel rejected? Did you feel like I was angry or judgmental? Tell me exactly what happened so we can deal with the actual emotion. And I also agree with Shawn that when I hear things like that, I'm asking follow-up questions. Because you technically didn't answer me. And this should make Nikki feel better because she sees that it is how Shawn approaches everything in life. This was what their first fight was about when they were sitting poolside on their honeymoon. And she said, I feel like you're interviewing me. Here it is that Shawn is making a distinction. I want a direct answer to my question, and the one that you're giving me, it's vague and I don't understand what you mean underlying that. And Shawn might have meant well, but because Adam felt shamed, I do think it was appropriate to say my bad, but he wasn't wrong. And even Paul catches it. He says, I feel like this is my dad. And it was him schooling Adam. But I hope that he's able to take that criticism and apply it. But his ego is too big. So, Adam isn't going to do that. Adam also isn't grown or mature enough to give us his feelings about his wife, because we know so much about how he feels about the gym, his time on this jet ski, his time alone at his house on the lake. We know so much about his feelings about his lifestyle, but we know nothing about his feelings on a deeper level with Marissa, and that's concerning. Rather than just disagreeing with Shawn, Adam makes up this whole fight in his mind where he's like, oh, you want to call me out for a low emotional intelligence? Well, now let's talk about your marriage. Well, Shawn starts off by saying things are going so much better in his relationship with Nikki. Adam says, I don't buy it. Y'all have had a rough 9 to 10 days and all of a sudden one therapy session fixes all of that. Adam says he doesn't even see a real connection between the two of them. And in Adam's confessional, he even says that their relationship is in complete shambles. He goes into being ageist at one point and says that because of their age, they shouldn't be fighting over petty things. But I want to remind Adam that he's also fighting with his wife over a jet ski and time spent at the pickleball court. Let's fix our own marriage before we start talking about others, Adam. That's where you kind of lose me. But it's clear that he's just retaliating in all of this. Adam is so insecure about his marriage that I think anyone challenging him would have faced the same, and their marriage would have been under attack because he cannot handle that type of judgment. Then here comes Michelle chiming in saying, I don't think he's your person. Mecca says, I don't see the attraction from Nikki to Shawn, and I will give them that. Nikki has not had much attraction to Shawn, but they're not in their everyday marriage and they're not really certain of what's going on. It's just a bad situation and they feel so comfortable, I guess, dogpiling on Shawn and Nikki for some reason. It's really interesting. I'm not sure if producers are behind this or what's happening. We do not see the same level of critique going towards Devin and Caitlyn. When Courtney and Nick were on the show, there was not the same level of vitriol. So I'm really confused why it's going towards Shawn and Nikki. Nikki makes it clear that their relationship is a lot healthier now and that attraction is growing, but she's had to work at it. And I think that that's why it was important to show that they had a physical connection earlier in the episode, because if not, we would have to just take her word for it. And can we believe that? We don't know. So I'm glad that they actually showed us that they were developing physical intimacy throughout this time together. So then Mecca decides to chime in and help Nikki by saying, oh, I wasn't attracted to Belle either when I first saw her. Belle said this news to me. The look on her face was of absolute shock. Like, this is news to me. I didn't know you weren't attracted to me. So she asks him, you weren't attracted to me? And he says, well, when I first saw you, I thought you were pretty, but were you pretty enough for me? Not upon first seeing you. Mecca just be saying anything. At this point, I don't even know that I believe him in this moment. I honestly think that he thought she was beautiful on their wedding day. He was gushing over her and he was concerned that she wouldn't be attracted to him from what I remember on wedding day. So to have this 180 flip, I think that Mecca is self-sabotaging actively, and he's doing it in front of a group to make it even more embarrassing for Belle. Do I believe what he's saying? No. But does delivery matter? Yes. Intent? Yes. Impact? Yes. All of those things matter, and no matter how you look at it, Mecca was dead wrong for saying that in this situation. It was unnecessary, and he really just should have sat there and been quiet. But the Belle and Mecca update of it all was really simple. Shawn asked them, how long do you think it's going to be before you say the L word to each other? And when do you say that in a couple? Belle says there's so much pressure to say the word when really everything that we're doing shows that we love each other. And the table had to agree. I mean, I think that they have one of the most solid situations going on at that table, and hopefully it's something that Mecca can work through on his own when it comes to his self-sabotaging nature. Now we're moving on to Felipe and Tori. Felipe and Tori have actually made some progress since the last episode. They met with Paul. They did this really nice date in a sauna, and he planned this really nice gesture for her since he had been dragging her through the mud the last few weeks, being unsure about his marriage to her. Felipe at the dinner table says that he got cooked at the group therapy session for not being sure about Tori. As you should be, but okay. But ever since he met Tori, he says she's the only woman he's wanted to be with. And everybody at the table is side-eyeing him, because we remember what you said last time we were at this same table. Where are you getting this from? And I'm supposed to believe that now you're just all in. And the table was in an uproar. And of course, Adam, who's now on a rampage, goes, Tori, you have all these things going for you. You're smart and beautiful. Why are you sitting here letting Felipe yap at you like this and be unsure about your marriage? Because you got this clown sitting here week after week saying he's unsure about you. Then Michelle chimes in again and says it feels like he signed up for dating at first sight, not married at first sight, which is actually true. Then Cameron gets down to the real issue. If decision day were today, what would you say, Felipe? Yes or no? And Felipe says that he would say yes today. But they push it one step further and try to see would he continue to say yes. And he says, all I can speak for is today, not the future. And it's scary because this is a marriage. You don't just wake up and choose not to say yes for forever. What is he talking about at this point? Does he know what marriage is, or does he think that marriage is just a form of dating with a marriage license? I'm not really sure. And then afterwards, he says that he really wished that Tori would have stepped up and defended him just a little bit. He says part of being in a partnership is defending your partner. My girl Tori looked at that camera like this was an episode of The Office, because she was in shock just like we were in shock. You want her to defend you when she doesn't even know if she's going to be married to you next week based on the way that you're so indecisive about her. Why does that make sense to you, Felipe? And we're all going to just leave it at that, because I don't think there's an adequate enough response. Now, we do have to talk about Devin and Caitlyn. Caitlyn let Devin sit down and have dinner with her and her dad. Her dad seems really cool with Devin. Caitlyn actually says as much, that Devin can pretty much go anywhere, meet anyone, and that's one of the things that she loves about him, is how well he fits in. After that sweet moment, we go to the dinner scene with them, and Caitlyn talks about the fact that she basically pulled back on physical intimacy ever since Cancun. And Caitlyn does admit that she wants them to progress and move forward, and that physical intimacy is important to her. Then Devin questions, how do you move forward without seeing how half the relationship actually works when it comes to physical intimacy? Felipe asks a question of, would any of you guys actually say yes on decision day if you and your partner hadn't reached certain levels of physical intimacy together? Most of the couples agree that no, they wouldn't, and Caitlyn calls that a childish mindset. She says she feels confident in both her and Devin's abilities, and she has no doubts that things will work out. Devin makes it clear, though, that if someone isn't into what you're into, that could be reason enough for them to leave the situation or step out on their partner. That causes Caitlyn to lash out completely. Her and Adam are actually quite similar in temperament now that I'm thinking about it. And Caitlyn automatically starts to hear, if your wife doesn't give you what you want, then you're cheating. And girl, that is not what that man said at all. I also agree with Dr. Paz's assessment that she's burying the headline that physical intimacy is important behind her fears of cheating. And that is not the same thing. That's a you problem, not a him problem or the table problem. That's a Caitlyn specific issue that she needs to deal with her therapist. Mecca, I love that he stood up for Devin, because Devin was automatically apologetic. And I told y'all, he makes himself as small as he needs to so that Caitlyn will tolerate him. And Mecca says, why do you hate his answer so much? And she says it's a piss poor attitude, especially for someone who's been cheated on. Devin tries to explain that's not what I meant, but she continues to cut him off. He says, I'm sorry, but this was about other couples in general. She said the sorry will suffice, and basically cut that man off from speaking, because she said there was no justification for what he just said. The way she speaks to him is almost like he's her dog. I don't know why nobody's calling Caitlyn out on her behavior, but it is nasty sometimes. And her and Caitlyn are one and the same in many ways. Now moving on to Michelle and Cameron. These two are happy. They're not embarrassing each other. They're not in conflict, and things seem to be working out well for them. Congratulations to the happy couple. Watching this episode, what I'm finding out is that all of these people are in conflict because they don't understand the difference between what someone said, what they heard them say, and then assigning motive to what they heard can sometimes lead to a different conclusion than what was actually meant. So for Felipe, for instance, he's saying contradictory things that lead people to believe that his motives are different from what he's actually telling them. And Shawn wanting Adam to express his emotions turns into criticism that Adam isn't ready to take in. Adam hears low EQ and thinks he's being called dumb and low IQ. Mecca tries to explain that physical attraction can grow, but then he ends up telling his wife that he wasn't attracted to her, which was disrespectful in this setting. Devin actually says to Caitlyn that physical compatibility can make or break a relationship, and Caitlyn hears that he wants to cheat, which is not what he actually said. And these are not identical situations, but they demonstrate something important, right? No communication ends with words leaving your mouth, because the person across from you has to take that information in, filter it through whatever lens they have of you and your motives behind saying it before they actually tackle a response, right? Now, I'm going to leave this up to you. Was Shawn right to call out Adam, or did he go too far? And was Adam calling out legitimate concerns about Nikki and Shawn's marriage, or was he just retaliating because Shawn said something about him and his emotional intelligence? Drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think. And also, do you think that Nikki is actually physically attracted to Shawn now? Or do you think that she's just forcing it to see if things can actually grow in that direction? And if you enjoyed this recap, remember to hit that subscribe button if that's so trending, and turn on your notifications for future uploads. And I'll see you guys back here soon.